guys, this is Lord Chael speaking on behalf of our show sponsor, Established Titles. Established Titles is a project based on a Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lords and ladies. They allow you to buy as little as 1 square foot of dedicated land so you can officially call yourself a lord or a lady. Established Titles is not just about your ego. You also get to do some good. In addition to your new fancy title, Established Titles supports global charities like One Tree Planet and Trees for the Future to help with the afforestation effort. Your title pack gets you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land in a private estate in Scotland. Your certificate features a unique plot number where you can see the exact location of your land. And right now, Established Titles is holding 200 plots of land right next to mine. So come join me in the Bad Guy Inc. Kingdom. Getting this certificate even allows you to officially change your name to Lord or Lady. Put it on your credit card, put it on your plane tickets, or if you're so inclined, put it on your dating profile. Makes for a great last-minute gift, and there's even couples packs that come with adjoining plots of land. Established Titles is having a great limited-time sale. Go to establishedtitles.com/Chael to save 10% off today. Remember to use the promo code Chael, or just click on the link below. Khamzat versus Dariush. Guys, I'm not sure that wasn't the best fight of the night. I'm really not sure. I've always liked the idea of fighter of the night. I know we do fight of the night. I like the idea of fighter. And the reason I say that is if we did fighter of the night, you would be surprised how many times that would go to a guy that got beat. Now, that would be an 80-20 spread. That would be 3 or 4 times a year, but a lot of times it does. A lot of times it does. I mean, I'll just give you an example. Fighter of the night, I thought was going to be Sean O'Malley. I also thought that he lost that fight. I know that he lost that fight. I wasn't aware they were going to give him the decision within that fight. I'm going, my goodness, look at how he's striking. Look how he's pushing himself. Look at how he's staying in there. Look at how he's dealing with a former world champion as a young guy who's a 4-1 underdog, right? I thought it was going to be him. Beneil Dariush had a performance. I was blown away. Very difficult for me to speak about, and I want to talk to you guys about something else. Beneil Dariush was supposed to fight Islam. Now, we wanted to see that fight, right, guys? But when I say we, I'm talking about the 15% of the market that is us. We're the hardcores. We wanted to see that fight. That wasn't going to be some massive fight. That wasn't what the world was clamoring for, but we got it. And that fight was announced. That fight was supposed to happen. Dariush ended up having to pull out of it, just to remind you guys that time frame. I believe that's where we even inserted Bobby Green again, just to remind you of this time frame. 4 guys were asked about that in the division. All 4 guys. Dan Hooker was one of them. Dan Hooker is the guy that used to be ranked number 5, has the right to an opinion. They all took Benny. I couldn't believe it. So what are you talking about? Dan Hooker went further to say, well, I know Benny can outstrike him. That part's not a question. But I think Benny can out-wrestle him. What the hell is Dan talking about? They went and asked the next guy. They went and asked the next guy. Justin Gaethje was part of that. Paul Felder was part of that. I couldn't believe it. Everybody's coming back there saying Benny. Now, I followed Benny very closely. I've brought you guys Benny. I did not know his anti-wrestling was as good as it was until I saw him with Gamrot. Benny talked about that after the fight, said I was actually a little let down with my wrestling. I can't believe he ever got me down. I thought I would be able to defend him. That's what we call hips from hell. When somebody can do what Benny did tonight, where they can get their hips square, they can put the opponent's head down. They can get on their own toes so they can slide. They can just block their opponent's knee. I mean, this is baseline 101. This is the kind of stuff you're going to learn on your very first day. But nobody does it. There's guys in the Olympic finals that don't do it. It's not flashy enough. It doesn't look cool enough. They don't want to turn their hips down while putting his head. They don't want to post on the knees. They don't want to put their feet down so that they can slide. Guy drives into you, you just slide. There's nowhere for him to take you unless you hit the fence. It is his close to perfect defense as you can do, but it's also what you would teach a 7, 8, and a 9-year-old kid on his first week of wrestling practice, and these pros just don't want to do it. It's what Benny did tonight, and it's the only thing that Benny did tonight, at least from that position. Benny at one point's looking for a leg lock. Benny was looking for a reversal. What Beneil Dariush did, see, Benny does this in every single fight. It's hard to see The fighters can see it. It's why nobody wants to fight him. It's why so many people respect him. Is he's weaponized pace. And there's a whole bunch of guys in our sport that have tried to do it. In fact, I could go to the point of telling you in the last 2 decades, everybody's tried to do it. To work harder, to break your opponent, to wear him down. Everybody tries to do it. Very few guys can do it. They're running on fumes out there, right? I mean, you got a VO2 max, you got hemoglobin and hematocrit. There's actual scientific reasons for who can push and who can't. It's not just tough and it's not just having heart. But we have seen a few guys. George St. Pierre comes to mind. Randy Couture comes to mind. Guys, Khabib comes to mind. Guys who could put a pace on you, and that pace in and of itself became a weapon because toughness beats technique every single time. It's just hard to be a lot tougher than your opponent, right? When you're in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, when you're on television, when you're in world contender matches, it's very hard to be a lot tougher than your opponent. But if you can, you'll beat his technique every time. Toughness will always win out. And that's what Benny's doing. Benny has weaponized pace. Gamrot looked a little bit faster than Benny. Gamrot looked a little bit more athletic than Benny. Gamrot looked like he just had a little bit more speed and a little bit more finesse than Benny. He could not outwork Benny. Just couldn't do it. And where does Benny go now is a wildly difficult question to answer. It is more than obvious that he is qualified for and should be in a world title fight. That is more than obvious. And in any other landscape, right, this is a duh moment. What do you want to do with Benny? Duh. We're going to have one of two conversations. We're going to say that he goes on and fights for the world championship, or we're going to begin to lay out how we're going to screw him and how we're going to take it from him. But we have to go one of those two, unless a world champion moves into the weight class. Right? Problem. The right fight to make is going to be made. It's Volkanovski versus Islam. That's the right fight to make. In any other landscape, any other time, that the 45 sitting champ doesn't move up, of course it's going to be Benny, but that isn't the situation, so what do you do with him? What do you want to do? He still has a problem. He's still not making demands. He's still not red hot on the mic. He's still not completely known by the fans. He's not any of those things. He might be the best fighter in the world. What do you want to do, right? I mean, this sport, we have an integrity that comes with it. Yes, we have the right as piece of the pie to bring in the entertainment and the popularity aspect. Sure we do. We're not wrong to do that, but we also have an integrity. So what do you do? Is there anybody right now that you want to see him with? Because I know that Michael Chandler does not care. He will fight anybody. If it becomes a number one contenders match, he will. Beneil Dariush has not fought Dustin Poirier. Do we have our answer, guys? And we have our answer that we could all sit back and we could all co-sign and drink to that if, okay, so just hear out my scenario. Benny's going to chill out a little bit. We're going to put Benny against the winner of Poirier and Chandler. Okay? If we guarantee that's the number one contenders match. And I believe with Charles coming off the top of the bill, that seat would be wide open. I believe we could make that a number one contenders match. I believe that to the point that even though Chandler and Poirier are still a month away, I believe we put what I'm proposing for you, the winner of that fight against Benny, we put that on the same card in what looks like to be Australia as Volkanovski versus Islam. I think we've solved the problem. And the only reason, and I don't really dwell on what's next, right? I mean, the boys on Office 2 at the UFC seem to always give us what we want. I don't ever really try to get in front of that and interfere. My larger suggestion is not about who's next, but that we make sure. We make sure that whatever is next for Dariush, we do clarify and specify as a number one contendership match. Because if we don't, and he wins, that will be 9 wins in a row, the span of 5 years in what we all widely regard to be the hardest division in the sport. And we have an integrity, don't we, guys? Yeah, we like to be entertained. And yeah, we like a guy when he's hot on the mic. And yes, popularity does matter. But we also want to do things right. We would love to give that to Benny now. We would love to even hear from Benny if he just wants to sit on ice and come in and be the ultimate fighter. We'll hear anything from Benny. But if we're trying to solve the problem and it's business as usual, this is a prize fighter who needs to fight to get a prize, I think we should give a real consideration to having him on hand, talking about it ahead of time, and getting Benny in there with the winner of Chandler and Poirier.